The mystery of lost Atlantis. Imagine a land where majestic temples gleam in the sun, and vast canals intersect mighty cities. The riches of Atlantis surpass even the golden treasures of ancient Egypt, and its inhabitants possess knowledge and technology that seem to be ahead of their time. But one day all this disappears, one cataclysm, and the entire civilization is swallowed by the ocean. It is a story that has fired the imagination of people around the world for over 2,000 years. But was Atlantis real? Or is it just a myth that has survived the ages? Part 1. Birth of a Legend. The history of Atlantis begins in ancient Greece, and its source is Plato, one of the most important philosophers in history. It is in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias that the description of the mysterious land appears. Plato tells of a powerful kingdom that existed 9,000 years before his time, and that sank into the depths of the sea in one day and one night. But where did the philosopher get this information? According to Plato himself, the story is said to have come from Solon, an Athenian statesman who heard it from the priests there while traveling in Egypt. They claimed that Atlantis was a great empire that lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, today's Straits of Gibraltar. Its inhabitants were a powerful people who fought wars with Europe and Africa. They were also exceptionally advanced. According to Plato, they had advanced architecture, impressive irrigation systems, and wealth that was unseen anywhere else. Plato's description of Atlantis is incredibly detailed. He speaks of concentric rings of canals surrounding the city, a temple of Poseidon inlaid with gold and silver, and a fleet of mighty ships. But did Plato really believe in the existence of Atlantis? Or was it just a metaphor? Plato's philosophy often features allegories to teach people about justice, morality, and the nature of power. Some scholars believe that Atlantis may have been just such a symbol, a warning against hubris and the downfall of great civilizations. However, others claim that Plato's story may have a real basis. Perhaps Atlantis really existed, but its fate was sealed and eventually became a legend? It is possible that Plato was inspired by a natural disaster, such as the volcanic eruption on Santorini that destroyed the Minoan civilization. Or perhaps the story goes back even further and refers to ancient forgotten peoples. Whatever the interpretation, Atlantis has fascinated people since the beginning. Later philosophers such as Aristotle were skeptical of the story, but there were still claims that there might be some truth to it. Even in modern times, scholars and treasure hunters continue to try to solve the mystery. Part 2. Historical Evidence and Clues. If Atlantis really existed, did it leave any traces behind? For centuries, explorers, historians, and archaeologists have tried to find evidence of this mysterious civilization. Although no direct traces of Atlantis have been discovered, there are ancient records and legends that may point to similar lost lands. One of the most interesting clues is the stories from different cultures that tell of great catastrophes that drowned entire civilizations. Sumerian mythology has a story of a great flood that resembles the later biblical stories of Noah. Similar legends can also be found in Hindu traditions, where there is talk of flooded cities and lost lands. Could all these myths have a common source? Interestingly, the ancient Egyptians, from whom Solon supposedly heard the story of Atlantis, themselves spoke of lost civilizations from thousands of years ago. Egyptian priests claimed that humanity had been destroyed many times by powerful cataclysms, wars, earthquakes, floods. They also mentioned ancient peoples who had extraordinary knowledge, but whose traces had disappeared in the darkness of history. Some inscriptions and ancient maps suggest the existence of lands that are now underwater. One of the most enigmatic sites is a sunken structure off the coast of Japan, Yonaguni. Although it is not Atlantis, its unusual architecture resembles lost cities. Could similar ruins lie at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean? Scientists are also probing the seabed for signs of ancient civilizations. Some say structures off the Bahamas known as the Bimini Road could be the remains of sunken cities. Others point to submerged ruins off the coast of Cuba and Spain. Is it possible that Atlantis was one of many civilizations that disappeared under the sea due to natural disasters? Despite numerous studies and theories, one thing is certain. Atlantis remains one of the greatest mysteries of history. Was it real, or is its history just an echo of other forgotten worlds? Part 3. Theories on the location of Atlantis. Where was Atlantis? This question has fired the imagination of explorers and adventurers for centuries. Plato wrote that it lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, near the present-day Strait of Gibraltar. However, modern theories place it in various corners of the world, from the Mediterranean to Antarctica. One of the most popular places that could have inspired Atlantis is the Greek island of Santorini. More than 3,500 years ago, this volcanic island was home to the advanced Minoan civilization. A powerful volcanic eruption almost completely destroyed it, and huge tsunami waves could have buried its cities underwater. Supporters of this theory believe that Plato may have known the story of the Minoan catastrophe and transformed it into the myth of Atlantis. Others point to southern Spain and the area around Doñana National Park, where archaeologists have discovered ancient structures that could belong to a submerged civilization. Some researchers suggest that Atlantis may have been part of Tartessos, a legendary wealthy trading culture mentioned by the Greeks and Phoenicians. In turn, supporters of the theory of Atlantis as a pre-Columbian civilization point to Central America. There are assumptions that the Atlanteans may have been the ancestors of the Maya or Aztecs, and that their lost city lies somewhere beneath the tropical forests. There are even ideas that Atlantis may have been a vast empire, not a single island. Some researchers go even further and suggest that Atlantis could have been located in Antarctica. According to this theory, thousands of years ago, this continent was not covered in ice and could have been inhabited by an advanced civilization. Later climate changes were supposed to have caused the land to be engulfed by frost and snow. Regardless of which of these theories is true, one thing is certain: the search for Atlantis continues to this day. Will archaeologists ever find evidence of this civilization's existence? Or will Atlantis forever remain a legend? Part 4. Catastrophe and Destruction. Plato wrote that Atlantis disappeared in a single day and night, in a massive catastrophe. What could have caused such a sudden collapse of civilization? Scientists and historians have long tried to find an explanation that would fit the ancient descriptions. One of the most likely causes of Atlantis's destruction is a volcanic eruption. If Atlantis was inspired by the Minoan civilization, then the key role may have been played by the volcanic eruption on Santorini, about 3,500 years ago. It was one of the most powerful volcanic explosions in human history. Tsunami waves swept away the island, and the ash cloud caused climate changes in the entire region. Such an event could have been the basis for the legend of the sudden sinking of the land. Another theory is an earthquake combined with a tsunami. If Atlantis was indeed located near the coast of Europe or Africa, it could have fallen victim to a strong earthquake that destroyed its cities, and then caused giant waves to flood the entire land. Such cataclysms have occurred many times in history. Similar phenomena destroyed the cities of the ancient Greeks and Romans. There are also more controversial hypotheses. Some believe that Atlantis was an advanced civilization that perished in a mysterious cataclysm. Proponents of this theory claim that the Atlanteans may have had advanced technology, and their fall was the result of a catastrophe of their own making. While we do not know what truly led to the destruction of Atlantis, one thing is certain: the story of its fall has survived for thousands of years. Part 5. Atlantis and the Advanced Civilization. Atlantis has always been described as a place of extraordinary technological and cultural advancement. Plato claimed that its inhabitants surpassed other civilizations in every way. They had impressive cities, powerful ships, and wealth that was not seen anywhere else. But could there really be people who were ahead of their time? One of the most fascinating aspects of the Atlantis legend is its architecture. Plato described the main city as consisting of concentric rings surrounded by water, and at its center was a magnificent temple to Poseidon. Some scholars suggest that this may have been an ancient interpretation of modern cities with canals and intricate water networks. Furthermore, according to some sources, the Atlanteans had access to technology that allowed them to build monumental structures with a precision that would not have been possible for people of thousands of years ago. There is also the question of their scientific knowledge. Various accounts say that the Atlanteans knew the secrets of astronomy, engineering, and navigation at a level much higher than other civilizations of the time. Some compare them to the ancient Egyptians, who built pyramids in a way that is still controversial today. Could the Atlanteans have had similar or even more advanced technology? There is also no shortage of theories suggesting that Atlantis was a place where energy of unknown origin was developed. Supporters of this hypothesis point to ancient stories about energy storing crystals or devices that could resemble today's technology. Is it possible that Atlantis was indeed the cradle of extraordinary inventions that were lost with its destruction? Regardless of how much truth there is in these stories, one thing is certain. Atlantis still stirs the imagination and inspires exploration. If it really existed, perhaps its secrets are still waiting to be discovered. Part 6. Atlantis Today, Myths and Pop Culture. Although Atlantis remains one of history's greatest mysteries, its legend lives on in our culture. Tales of the lost civilization have appeared in literature, art, and films for centuries. It has become a symbol of mystery, power, but also the pride that leads to downfall. Even in modern times, Atlantis has fascinated scientists and adventurers. In the 18th and 19th centuries, many explorers tried to find its traces. Some were convinced that Atlantis was an ancient continent that had been submerged by a natural disaster. Others believed that it could have been the cradle of an entire civilization whose influence spread throughout the world. Today, Atlantis appears in pop culture in countless ways. It has inspired many books, films, and computer games. In adventure literature, Atlantis is often depicted as a place full of mysterious technologies and forgotten artifacts. Science fiction films show it as a city hidden under the sea, or even as an advanced civilization that managed to survive somewhere hidden. One of the most popular examples is a series of animations and films in which Atlantis is shown as a magical and technologically advanced land. Many people believe that the story of Atlantis may have inspired some myths about utopian lands, such as El Dorado or Shangri-La. Although there is still no evidence of its existence, the legend of Atlantis is not dead. Ocean exploration is still ongoing, and archaeologists and geologists analyze the seabed in search of traces of ancient civilizations. Will Atlantis ever be found? Or has it long since become a part of history that we will never be able to fully understand? What do you think? Did Atlantis really exist? Or is it just a myth? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you want, and see you in the next episode.